Today we've got the president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton. Welcome, sir.
Well, it's good to be with you, but you're going to have to get another guest. I'm not a lawyer.
Well, you get to be the president of Judicial Watch. That's good enough for me.
I'll do my best to explain. Well, a lot of what we're talking about isn't law, as you'll find out.
Yeah, it's honestly dirty politics. You're right, Tom Fitton.
Yeah.
And I understand.
But good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I understand that you appeared before this grand jury. There was 23 of them. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's the number that's in there. This is a grand jury that's been impaneled by Biden, his Justice Department, to target Trump for this document hoax and for his disputing and others disputing Biden's election. I mean, to describe it is to condemn it, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems that way. Now, what's interesting here is that they're going after Trump on documents, and in another jurisdiction, they're going after Trump on everything they can. You have a pretty good track record of waging some lawfare against them with your own lawsuits and being successful. What's your take on this right here? Having had them drag you in to be a witness. What do you think is going to be the outcome of this? Do you think Andrew Weissman is correct that it's not a question of if but when, or do you think they eventually back down and this is just theater?
I don't think they're going to back down. I think they're going to concoct a reason to indict him. I think they've been incentivized by Alvin Bragg's outrageous investigation and indictment up in New York. Mm-hmm. And, my thinking is there's other Democrat partisans now running this investigation in the Justice Department are going to say, why not join the party? And certainly in Fulton County, Georgia, another hotbed of Democratic partisanship, they're also concocting reasons to go after Trump. And I think, obviously President Trump and no one else is above the law, but they're not beneath the protection of the law. And so when you see these charges being bandied about, you have to say, is there something going on here that hasn't happened before? And if it is, that's a pretty good indication something improper is happening. And in New York and Washington, D.C., and in Georgia, you have unprecedented and novel applications of the so-called law to target Trump in ways that have never been done before in our legal system, and certainly not against the former president. In New York, you have a settlement with someone, they charge you with a crime because it was a campaign finance violation, although they won't tell you exactly what that crime might be, as we've learned in New York. In Washington, D.C., you dispute a Democrat president winning, you get investigated by a grand jury. You hold documents as a former president that every former president has been able to do and has been interpreted to be proper previously, certainly for Bill Clinton, as Judicial Watch uncovered when we had actually sued on this very issue for his infamous sock drawer case. New rules for Trump. And in Fulton County, Georgia, again, challenging an election, raising questions as president about the way the election was conducted. They want to prosecute you and jail you. And I tell you, my guess is, and it's probably not too far afield, that this President Trump's going to be campaigning from jail potentially at one point.
Wow. Folks, we're on with Tom Fitton. He's the president of Judicial Watch. And Tom Fitton, tell us a little bit more about your experience with this interrogation, this interview from the grand jury investigating Trump. What, I guess they notified your attorney or they sent you a subpoena. You responded.
They came to my house. They sent FBI agents to my house to serve me a subpoena as I was recovering from skin cancer surgery. I literally got home a few hours earlier. Knock, 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 knock. Imagine getting that served to you at night. And, long story short, I end up in front of the grand jury after abusive back and forth with the Justice Department where they said I could come in and talk informally to their lawyers, and then they decided, no, I had to come in for a grand jury appearance as a witness. I mean, complete pulling the rug out from our plans to cooperate with them. Even though we knew it was harassment, what are you going to do? It's the government, right? And it's Washington, D.C., so you can't really get anywhere with the courts if you object too strongly to it. You go in there,
it's kind of hard to say no.
Yeah, it's and we're not above the law either, right? It's a grand jury subpoena, so they say I'm a witness, so I go. Now, Judicial Watch, and we've been front and center in highlighting this disparate treatment between between Clinton and Trump on records, right? Because we had been involved in this Clinton records case where we had sought records that we thought Clinton shouldn't have had, and we thought were classified, and the government should have gotten. And we were told by the Justice Department and the archives and the federal court judge, no, there's nothing you can do. The president gets to keep records if he wants after he leaves, and there's no one who can second guess him. And the government said, we presume records that he has after he leaves office are necessarily personal, meaning not classified. And so when all this erupted with Trump in last year, we're like, well, what is going on here? You did a 180 from your position with Judicial Watch. The court endorsed them, and all of a sudden the new rules for Trump. So we're front and center. What do we get? We sue on the abusive raid. We sue to get access to the subpoena. We sue to highlight the kind of the abuse of Trump that, again, is happening. And what do we get for our work as an anti-corruption watchdog group? An abusive subpoena from the Justice Department. And you go in there, and it's 23 or so grand jurors, and I had 3 U.S. attorneys or 3 prosecutors, federal prosecutors, tag teaming me for 4 hours of questioning.
Wow. Now, when we come back, I want you to kind of detail a little bit of what that was like, what they were asking you, and all of that. But before we get to that, I just want you to remind everybody of how they can keep up to speed with what you're doing. Share your social media handle and your website if you can, Tom Fitton.
Oh, well, thank you for that. It's judicialwatch.org is our website, judicialwatch.org. We're all over social media under Judicial Watch. And I'm on Twitter at Tom Fitton, and I'm on True Social at Tom Fitton as well.
All right, folks, as soon as we're coming back, we're going to be discussing what happened inside this grand jury, what those questions were like. We're on with Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. We're coming straight back. Phone number 833-4-VALDES. Don't move a muscle. We'll be right back. All right, America, welcome back. We're on with Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. And while he was at home sitting on his couch recovering from significant skin cancer surgery, there were knocks on the door. And it wasn't anybody bringing him a pie saying, get well soon, Tom Fitton. Who was it?
It was 2 FBI agents. Although they nicely pointed out I had an Amazon package there to get as well.
Oh, thank God. Thank God you got your Amazon Prime
with my bandaged face. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
So they go in and they bless you with this subpoena. You have to come in, 23 grand jurors, and then there's, you said 3 federal prosecutors, and they're after you. They want to get some information after you. What are they asking you?
Well, the general topics were this dispute with the Trump records, and then secondly, the dispute with the 2020 elections. And we started arguing about the Clinton Sockrow case and electors and, my tweets and what I said to Trump and whether I got phone calls, 2 years earlier. And it was, as I've been saying, it was like being on MSNBC for 4 hours. You go in there thinking, well, maybe there's something I need to be worried about here. Maybe there's a crime. They need my witness testimony. It's important. And then it's a debate about all these issues. It wasn't, they got a few questions that were substantive that they probably had to check the boxes to ask, but the rest of it was argumentative and being abused and harassed for First Amendment protected activity by me and Judicial Watch. That's what it came down to. It was partisan. It was a fishing expedition. I didn't see that anything substantive was being investigated or should have been investigated. And I'm thinking of these poor grand jurors who are having to listen to me talk for 4 hours about what I had to eat at the White House with Trump during lunch.
Oh, that's terrific. So,
I mean, we laugh in retrospect, but it's awful to go through, and it's really outrageous. And it's one thing to go to MSNBC or to be questioned on a radio show about it. It's another thing to recognize that this is, a pretty sacrosanct process, right? The rule of law, the federal grand jury, they're investigating a former president. And you go in there and you're like, what is going on here? This is a political fight.
And how do you ultimately handle this? I mean, I guess you're telling them the truth. You're there with counsel. Are you there without your attorneys? How does that process?
Oh, well, that's the interesting thing. When you go into a grand jury, they initially said I could go in and make a proffer. And when you make a proffer, you go and you talk to the lawyers and your attorney's there, and they can help manage the discussion and, protect you. But then they decided, no, we want a grand jury, which is it's outrageous that they said you can come in and do a proffer, and then all of a sudden we need you to come in as a witness to the grand jury, and they basically reasserted the subpoena. Unbelievable. And so you go in there, in the grand jury room, you're not with your attorney, and if there's an objection or an issue you have to get up and leave, and they give you a little time to consult with the attorney.
Terrific the way they try to set you up. All right, folks, we're on with Tom Fitton. He's the president of Judicial Watch. I know we have a couple of callers that have questions for Tom Fitton. Let's go to John in Elyria, Ohio, WNIR. John, very quickly, go right ahead. You're on with Tom Fitton and Rich Valdes.
Hi, how you doing? The media is reporting that Trump is on tape contradicting his claim that he declassified the documents when he took them. Is that report true or false?
Thank you, John. Tom Fitton?
Well, I've looked at those stories very closely. The media is reporting, CNN reported that they talked to someone who heard a tape that suggests that Trump may or may not have known that the records were, quote, classified, which doesn't really answer the legal question as to whether they were classified or not. So when you look at these media stories, the more hysterical they are, especially on these records issues, the more you realize that it's a lot of noise signifying nothing in the end. So I think one can fairly stifle some more yawns in the latest iteration of Trump had records.
Thank you, John. Now, Tom Fitton, I know you don't have a crystal ball, nor are you a professional handicapper of cases against Trump, but how do you see this one ultimately unfolding? You said you do think they're not going to relent, they're going to continue to go after him. Do you see an indictment coming out of this? Is this going to be one more indictment against Trump? And do you think it's going to have the same effect if in fact that happens? Like, shooting up in the polls with the last indictment?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suspect they're going to they want to indict him. I mean, just the process itself, to me, no sensible prosecutor would have pursued it as long unless they thought they would have the big prize at the end. And but this is insensible. It's political. Now, the political impact, if politicians thought indictments and prosecutions would be helpful, they'd be lined up at the courthouse asking for them. But obviously, they're not. But right, as someone pointed out to me the other day, Trump's a different politician. So I think, ironically, many Americans may discount this. So who knows? Because they see it's just, just more of the Durham report just reminded people the Justice Department is irredeemably corrupt. So anything that comes out with respect to Trump, I think people will appropriately discount. However outrageous and anti-constitutional and dangerous it is to the future of our republic.
Yeah, lamentably, that seems to be the truth. It seems like we're turning the corner on new and uglier things that are more egregious each week, each day, in fact. Tom Fitton, I wanted you to just remind everybody about the work that you're doing at Judicial Watch and, again, give them the website and any social media handles so that they know how to find you.
Yeah, so folks know, we sue the bad guys. We sue government to get records. We sue the government when they do things wrong. We represent whistleblowers. We're the number one government watchdog group in the country. And, without us, a lot of what we know about all these big scandals, you wouldn't know. And you can go and support us at judicialwatch.org. Judicial Watch, oneword.org. For instance, it took a lot of money to pay for lawyers and to deal with this grand jury craziness, money we'd rather be spending on lawsuits and fighting the whole government accountable. And I'm online at Tom Fitton on Twitter. And of course, Judicial Watch is all over social media as well. So follow us, join our cause, join our movement, and share the word.
All right, folks, you heard it here. Tom Fitton's president of Judicial Watch. Tom Fitton, I want to thank you for joining us and giving us your side of the story. Sorry about what happened to you as you were recovering, but I'm glad you made it through it. You're a patriot, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.